A few years ago, I was working as a healthcare assistant at the hospital. Recently, having moved out of my dad's home, I had started renting a small detached home in the countryside. I had one neighbor on the street, a man in his late 30s who I would call Jake. He was single and lived alone. My first encounter with Jake was when I was moving in. My dad couldn't accompany on my first day of moving in due to his work schedule, so I was unpacking by myself. Jake walked up on me, introduced himself, and offered to help with me moving my heavy items. I'm a very small woman, so I appreciated the help. My first impression was that he was very kind, open, and polite. He chatted to me about his job, told me that he liked to play instruments and write in his spare time. We bonded over both loving the band too, and we both enjoyed playing the bass. The next day, I bought him some beer as a thank you. He wasn't in, however, so I left it by his front door and included a thank you note for all the previous helping day prior. Over the next few weeks, as I settled in, Jake would pop up. We chat about music, discuss shared hobbies, drank beer, and occasionally even watch movies together, as I was new to the area and didn't have many friends yet. So he helped provide some social interaction outside of my job. But as you can already tell, things didn't stay so good. I got home one evening to see a basket full of flowers on my doorstep and an included card which read that this was from Jake and he wanted to speak with me when I had the time. I walked inside with the basket. I didn't even get a chance to put it down before knocking at my door. It was now 11 p.m. and I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the window next to the door to see Jake waving at me. I opened the door, and that's the first time I can recall where I started to feel uneasy around him. I asked if I saw the basket. He asked if I saw the basket and if I liked it. He asked to come in, but I said something along the lines of how tired I am after work and that we should speak tomorrow. He didn't say anything for a few seconds before he asked if I would want to grab a coffee with him before work tomorrow. I said sure and closed the door. The next morning we got coffee at a Costa that was close to the hospital I worked at. He seemed very excited and giddy. Soon after, he asked me to be his girlfriend. I had to decline as we had only known each other for a few weeks. And, well, he is significantly older than me. He suddenly dropped his cheery demeanor as if he had become someone else in that matter of seconds. He grabbed his things and left, saying only that he had to go to work. I went to work too and tried not to think too much on it. I had to work overtime that night and started heading home at night around midnight. When I pulled up to my home, I saw Jake sitting on my doorstep. I really didn't want to get out of my car, but I did and walked up to him. He started off politely, asking if I had thought over his proposal, and I said no, and that I'm sorry, and that I'm not interested. Once again, as if a switch had flipped, he went off on me. Called me spoiled and ungrateful. I was scared at that point and asked him to leave. He wouldn't, and I managed to get in my car with him following me. I showed him through the window that I'm calling the police. He swore at me and left. I didn't call the police that night. I gave him the benefit of the doubt, thinking he was just frustrated. One of my biggest regrets is not calling him. The next morning, I found wildflowers that looked like they were picked from a garden at my front door, as well as a post. It was with the word sorry and a sad face drawn on it. At work that day, I was called by the nurse in charge who took me aside saying my boyfriend was there to see me as it's urgent. She also told me to tell my boyfriend that he should not come to see me at work again, especially since I wasn't on break as it's unprofessional. It was Jake. He wanted to ask me if I had gotten his father's message. I went off on him saying things along the lines of how dare he come to my work, get me in trouble no less, posing my boyfriend. All this took place in the canteen. He didn't say anything, didn't apologize. I told him to knock it off and I left. Things only got worse from here. He would often wait for me when I got home, try to bribe me with gifts, more flowers. He even went as far and got me a new guitar. I accepted nothing, and I was left everything where he put them. I eventually broke down to my dad, who asked if I wanted him to speak to Jake. I said no. He offered for me to move back with him, but I had too much pride and declined. My dad was really worried about me. One day, everything came to a halt when I came out and my front door jarred. Though not broken, my front room looked absolutely ransacked. I ran to my car and called the police. Nothing was missing, absolutely nothing, but my front room, kitchen, and bedroom were all rummaged through. I told the police I had an inkling it was Jake, who they ended up questioning, but his friend vouched for him and they said they were together that evening. So it couldn't have been Jake. I still don't believe that. I tried to tell the police everything that had been happening with Jake and how I was starting to feel really unsafe. However, I had no proof but the notes he had left me, which weren't threatening, so since there were no threat to life or well-being, they literally could not do anything. My dad helped me clean everything up and I had my locks changed. Jake actually left me alone for a little while after that. I started looking for a new place to live around that time. Then one evening I had come home, eaten some food, showered, and went to bed, only to be awoken, I'm not sure when, to somebody standing in my fucking doorway. I didn't move. I remember originally thinking I was having a sleep paralysis episode, but after moving my fingers, I realized I was fully awake with a dark figure clearly standing in my doorway. My phone was under my pillow, so I rolled over to my side, pretending to still be asleep. I just waited with my hand under my pillow on my phone. There was no way I could call the police without alerting the person in my doorway. Eventually, I could hear the footsteps fade, and I called the police, only telling them my address and that someone just broke into my house. And I think that they're still here. I got out of bed, grabbed the keys in my nightstand, and got out of the house by going out of the window and bolting it to my car. I had on a tank top and shorts. I didn't even have shoes on, which made driving horrible. I saw him then when I was pulling out, standing in the kitchen through the window. It was Jake. I had a small essential oil diffuser next to the window that shined enough light to be able to tell who the figure was. I drove as I spoke to the police. I remember just completely detaching from reality, at least that's what it felt like. And I drove to my dad's house. After looking over my house and the police drove to my dad's home where I told him everything about Jake, how he'd been following me, coming to my work, waiting for me when I got home, and now I was 100% sure he broke into my home and was planning to do God knows what. I was told that they found my front door locked when they got there and went to knock on Jake's door. He answered and looked as if he had just woken up. They asked him some questions and left him alone. It was so unimaginably hard to prove that you're being stalked in the UK. I managed to get a restraining order on the grounds of harassment, with proof that he had come to my workplace posing as my boyfriend and a co-worker who could support me in this, as she had overheard our conversation where I had to ask him to stop following me. I had also saved some texts he sent me where I asked how he got my number and told him to stop contacting me, but he went on to send some vaguely threatening messages along the lines of "I'll be waiting when you come home today," which, along with the workplace incident as well as the fact that I had mentioned Jake to the police who my house was broken into, managed to get me my restraining order. I went back to that house once with my dad and his friend to gather out all my things, and I did not see Jake that time or ever again for that matter. I had to transfer workplaces back to my original workplace as I moved back in with my dad. I'm now moved away and live alone again, trying to put the past behind me, but this type of thing definitely messed with me a little. I had to get some therapy and find it difficult to develop friendships, especially romantic relationships. He somewhat ruined that for me. I've not made any new friends since, never had a boyfriend either. I find it very hard to trust people outside of work, colleagues, and family. Okay, so I just had my baby in April this year, and he is my first, he is my world. In February, I was around 7 months and finally started the show. I was a late shower, so the 7-month mark was finally the point where you could say with certainty that I was pregnant if you saw me in passing. I live in Arizona as well, so it doesn't get too cold here, and I was wearing a tight sweater that showed off my bump. I was super proud of it. Anyway, I was at Walmart after work picking up a couple of groceries, and I was approached by a lone woman. She was a little shorter than me and had brown hair and looked around 35 if I had to guess. She seemed normal enough and sweet. She struck up conversation with me about my bump, the typical "how far along are you?" and "I can tell it's a boy by the way you're carrying." Again, she was sweet, but she lingered a little too long. I can't think of a reason for this in that particular moment, but the woman gave me a super weird vibe. I let her know that I had to get home to make dinner, and then she asked me for my information. She said she owned a children's boutique and would love to meet up to give me clothes for the baby. This seemed odd for several reasons. Why, as the owner of a children's boutique, would you just give away your merchandise to a stranger you just met? I politely declined, and when she asked to take my phone number down in case I changed my mind, something inside me was screaming at me not to give it to her. I let her know that I was really not interested and went to check out. For some reason, after that interaction, I felt super unnerved, and as I walked out, I looked behind me. She was leaving the store as well. I had already started walking in my car, but it was dark and I was parked far away, so I began to walk faster. I parked far because I had heard walking was good for pregnant ladies, but in that moment I was regretting making that decision. To my relief, she walked to the passenger side of a car in the same row as mine, and I still had a ways to go. I didn't see her get in or anything, but I was relieved nonetheless. When I finally got to my car, I suddenly got the intense urge to lock it as soon as I closed my door. I'm thankful every day that I did, because a millisecond later the woman sprinted up to my car and violently tried to open the passenger door. When it didn't open, she banged on the window shouting, "Fuck you, cunt," and then sprinted away. I was scared out of my mind, and I peeled out of there as soon as possible. I didn't even see exactly where she went. I never went to that location again. I'm not sure what would have happened had I gone to meet her, or if I didn't lock my car doors right away. I'm not sure what she wanted, but I've heard stories about women who steal babies out of pregnant women's bodies, and I fear that may be what she was trying to do. I don't know. I don't even like to think about it. Telling my story here because I want to make sure y'all stay alert and cautious of strangers, regardless of if they seem normal and even nice. So to preface, this story happened to me in my freshman year in high school. At that time, I was a 6 foot, 290 pound black 16-year-old, so being abducted was the absolute last thing I ever thought I would have to deal with. So every day I would walk home from school at around 3 o'clock-ish and get to my house around 3:30, since I live pretty close to my school. As I'm walking home, I see this absolutely beautiful black lab walking around the cul-de-sac I passed through to get home. I go up to the dog, who has a collar but no tag, so I book it home and grab the dog leash my parents kept near the door. We walk dogs very often. And a plastic bin and water bottle, as I didn't know how long the dog had been out for, and it's blistering hot where I live. Anyway, as I find the dog and leash it and give it some water, which it does like crazy. I then start knocking on doors to see whose dog it is. Finally, the owner opened the door and I was surprised to see me with the dog, and I explained that I saw him wandering around the cul-de-sac and gave him some water. Before anyone asked, the dog basically rushed in the house the second the door opened and almost pulled me in too, and was very affectionate to the woman who opened the door, so I was confident it was hers. I unleashed the dog and she pulls it in and slams the door shut, and I walk home. As I reminder, a black 6 foot, 290 pound teen left the cul-de-sac. A guy in a maroon-colored pickup truck pulls up on the curb and cuts off my path on the sidewalk. He rolls down the window, and this is roughly the beginning of the conversation. As a note before the dialogue, the whole time this guy switches from looking at me to looking up the road to see if any cars were coming. Creepy guy. "Hey, have you seen a black dog walking around?" Me. "Yeah, I found its owner and just gave it to them." Creepy guy. "Okay, I saw the dog walking out my house this morning, and my son was very worried about it." That was a lie. The owner told me she let her dog out about an hour ago in her backyard. Me. "Okay, you can let him know the dog is safe now." Creepy guy. "Yeah, I will. Yeah, my neighbor was really worried about the dog." Yes, this guy actually switched from saying son to young neighbor. Me. "Well, I'm going to walk home now. My mom is waiting for me." Creepy guy. "Oh, do you want to ride? I'm sure you can use the ride." Me. "No, I'm good. I just live over there," pointing in the opposite direction of my house. Creepy guy. "Oh, well, I was just heading over there. It's no trouble." Me. "That's okay. I like to take walks, and it's a nice day." Creepy guy. "It's pretty hot out. I'm sure you will enjoy some nice AC." This back and forth goes on for about 5 more minutes until I said I really have to get going now. Have a nice day. And turned around and walked back into the cul-de-sac, to which this guy followed me in his truck into the cul-de-sac. I walk out of the second exit, still notice he follows me, and then walk to the next streets over and eventually shake him after about 10 minutes. The streets in my neighborhood are basically like a labyrinth if you aren't familiar with them, and it was very obvious this guy did not live in this neighborhood. I walked home after I was sure I shook him, and immediately told my mom, who immediately thought I was joking with her because it sounded absolutely ridiculous. But I assured her I was being serious. Looking back, I probably should have taken a pic of the license plate and called the sheriff about this, but at that moment I was flabbergasted that this guy was actually trying to abduct me.